So Republican infighting could, with an emphasis on could, threaten the president's tariff agenda. It was interesting to watch last night because 3 Republican members in the House joined in with the Democrats and defeated the measure on the tariffs, 217 to 214. Now, there's no real practical impact from that unless the Supreme Court ends up agreeing with them. But still, as I say, it's interesting. Doug Flynn here, Flynn Zito Capital Management. And, you know, you wonder, like, I think, if you talk to Republicans, just traditional Republicans, like Steve Moore was in here earlier, people like that, not that he's in Congress, but people like Steve are, you know, not big tariff people, right? These traditional Republicans. So I wonder, are we starting to see a turn against the president on his signature economic policy a little bit?
They're definitely trying to rein in the flexibility that the president has used with this, and I think you're right, it does ultimately get to the Supreme Court to decide, because even if this does pass the House, it then has to pass the Senate, and then it has to pass the presidential veto. So it's really unlikely it's going to get all the way through. But look, these things, even if they're symbolic, can have an impact on both the markets and on price expectations. So I think that's part of it. But it's definitely a lot of politics in here, I think, more than anything else.
No doubt, because of the Supreme Court and because of the presidential veto that would no doubt meet this. Like, you know, I wonder what the president's move is on this, or if they're contemplating this in the White House, because if the Supreme Court does rule against him, you know, that is a bigger deal, right?
Oh, that would be huge, because then we don't know the impact of all rolling back and then the refunds that the companies and the importers are going to have to apply for if all of these are suddenly illegal or there's some kind of an impact. And that, I think he's even said, the president said, it's going to be a disaster unraveling it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it if it wasn't legal, but I think the impact is going to be far-reaching and probably could cause more damage than good. And so we'll see how it actually plays out.
Well, that's interesting. You think it could? Because we've talked before, just some argument to be said of, oh, if you don't like tariffs, maybe the Supreme Court rules against him. That would actually be, in a weird way, a good thing for, like, markets, for example.
It could be. I mean, these companies are going to get windfalls from all of this money back, however long that's going to take to get. And then, as we've talked about, whether or not they pass those back down to the consumer, I highly doubt. So does that mean, you know, the companies make even more money in their next earnings reports and their stocks even go higher? There's all these crazy impacts, I think, from things like this.
90 seconds to the closing bell. One more thing. We usually do Tax Tip Tuesdays with you, but with all our Nancy Guthrie coverage yesterday, we didn't get it. So, hey, let's call this Tax Tip Wednesday, all right? This is what we were going to talk about. Here it is on screen. This is very helpful for people, your tips that you give out, and you're looking at stuff that people might be missing, right?
Yeah, this has to do with, I mean, most people take the standard deduction because you know, it's high enough over mortgage interest and state and local income taxes. But there are these above the line deductions that don't matter whether you itemize or take the standard deduction. They happen before that. It has nothing to do with eligibility, but they're things that people might not think about. Now, you might know about IRA deductions and HSA deductions, but one that people are forgetting are student loan interest deductions. Now, people hadn't paid their student loans because they were deferred for a bit, but now when those came back in, that interest goes above the line, whether you itemize or take the standard. And there are other things for self-employed people and teachers that can take above the line. And the new one for this year is the charitable, the universal charitable deduction. You won't get it for 25, but in 2026, you get an extra $1,000 as a single or $2,000 as a couple on top of that. Those are above-the-line deductions. Take a look at them. They're even better than the below-the-line deductions.
Glad they play you Wednesday for your tax tip on Tuesday, so that worked out. Thank you, Doug.